What is up, guys, gals, and all you awesome, amazing minions of different shapes and sizes? It is me, Josh, aka Nawar Proxy, bringing you some The Flame in the Flood gameplay today. Developed by Molasses Flood, which is a very unusual run on words, having the word flood in your title and the developer's name. Very unusual, but very, very awesome at the same time. I ended up looking up what Molasses Flood was about. Very interesting stuff. Maybe it's like some kind of like homage to the developer to some kind of like past piece of history, but definitely check it out on Google, really, really awesome. But one thing I want to talk about is that the rise of the roguelikes, survival games, has been massive in the last 2 years. Really, really big, really, really huge. And what's awesome is that they've all been great. They've all been fantastic. I've fallen in love with this type of game, and I never thought I would, because generally I really like games that, I wouldn't say go easy on me, but are kind of more accessible. And roguelike survival games take a lot of your time. It's one of those things where there's a lot of trial and error to it, and The Flame of the Flood is just exactly like that. Now, the gameplay is kind of like that of Don't Starve. If you remember Don't Starve, it's a game where you're dropped in the middle of nowhere, and you have to try and make everything yourself, survive for as long as possible. There's like a little bit of a story like hidden in it, but that is basically it. While The Flame of the Flood is a game where you'll start at a specific location right here in Pinewood, I think it's called, in some form of post-apocalyptic part of life, I'm not too sure, and it's all about going downriver. And the amazing thing about this is that it works incredibly well. It's a game where you're playing as some form of Cub Scout Beaver Brownie. I'm not too sure. Did you ever wear one of these things where you were a Cub Scout Beaver Brownie? I'm not too sure. Is it like a park ranger character? Maybe just a survivor. But it's just fantastic how this works, how it flows. It's just so good, and the music again is amazing. The gameplay and how it kind of breadcrumbs you along into doing it, and it sets you on your way like instantly. Like the things that you have to do, the things that you need to survive are there for you to try and work out. It's a little bit more accessible than, say, Don't Starve in that sense, because it kind of guides you a little bit, but it's just awesome. It's just fantastic. Now, before we actually continue, just enjoy this part here. This is actually where you're traversing to different areas in the game. You do it by a raft, so enjoy the music, enjoy the feel, the atmosphere, and I'll talk to you in a moment.
Camper lights on the brand new banks, muddy cars and kitchen sinks. I need you like I need my help in this world and out of myself. I keep walking to see the next mile. Keep on praying for a stranger's smile. Hand to hold and a path well lit. A door to close and a place to sit on this road. These old feet and that old dog love to be to make food or fall. No one's searching, so I'm not lost. I don't cry for the paths I've crossed. All the snakes and the weeds, a little guru behind Cypress leaves. Make some run, I want to make some freeze. Make no mistake, be afraid of me. I keep walking to see the next mile. Keep on praying for a stranger's smile. Hand to hold and a path well lit. Door to close and a place to sit on.
Now, from what you've seen there, as mentioned, you traverse from area to area through a little life raft, and then what you end up doing is, if you want to collect a little bit more parts of like survivable loot, you can see these little trolley baskets like on little islands, and you've got like this thing of risking your raft's health to try and grab them. Now, this is the first time I've actually played this properly, and as you can see, it's quite, I want to say unfriendly, but when you make a mistake, you really feel the mistake. But also, what did you think to that music? One thing I thought was fantastic is just how this game makes you feel part of its world. The music is so good, and it was one of those things where I was really drumming along to it as well. I just felt immersed just because of the music itself. And the art style too is so good, so pretty. It gave me loads of reminiscent feelings of, say, Coraline and Dave McKean, who's an amazing storybook creator. He does things through kind of like photo manipulation to make all of his books. He's done some movies as well. And if you ever get a chance, check out Dave McKean. But this art style really brought back those memories. I've been fascinated by his work, and just like look at the nature and how the environment works and how you're traversing through it and wandering. It feels great. Now, as mentioned, you go through on a raft, through the lands, on the river, trying to get from location to location. And you've got to kind of pick where you want to go, because you can only go for a certain set of time, I think, before you actually ultimately die. I'm not too sure from reading into it if there's actually an end game to this, or if it's actually about trying to survive for as long as possible. If it's all very RNG, you know, where it's all about the luck of the find and stuff. But when you're going on this raft, you end up having to actually pick the locations that you go to. So you may come across, say, a forest on one side, or a campsite, say, and then a church on the other side, which may have some other form of interesting loot, maybe to like rest for the night or something like that. Because your character has a lot of requirements. They have a temperature requirement, they have a sleep requirement, water and food. And so it's this thing of having to keep all those things in check, because each one can actually really kill you in a very strong sense. And you've even got health as well, so you need to make sure that you're always very well looked after, because the smallest little thing might kill you, or hurt you, or work against you. Like there was one bit where I randomly, accidentally, unknowingly walked over a pack of thorns, like just a bush with some spiky edges to it, and it ended up cutting my character. And kind of like in Doom or Wolfenstein, you see the face of the girl kind of like get damaged by that, which is something I really like in games. You can see like the reaction of their face through the interface. Really, really awesome. And one thing you have to do is, it's kind of like, it's very unusual to like mention this game, but Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid, that thing of having to like, use splints and having to craft them, make them to actually make your character feel better. There was a bit where I ended up breaking my leg, and so I had to like make a splint to look after myself. And it's just really cool having to do these things and collect things in the environment to just put them together and kind of stay alive for as long as possible. I'd love to know in the comment section below though what you think to these types of game. Let me know. Is there any like type that you really, really like? Maybe you prefer something more like Darkest Dungeon, where you have like an RPG survival where it's all about a group of warriors going into dungeons and then having to take down the biggest threat possible and then trying to get them out of there without losing them, but also getting the most magnificent of loot. It's kind of cool that we have all these different types of games like that, but the Flame in the Flood is I don't know. I just don't know how to get over it. It's just so nicely done, and obviously the developers had this very distinct kind of feel that they wanted to go for, and they wanted you to feel helpless. This is something that I found really, really interesting, is that with a lot of these survival games, the ultimate goal is that you become badass, is that you become this ultimate survivor, but what if it was kind of like The Last of Us, where in a way, partially, there isn't really any hope? Like, just going by the stream, look, there's like a house floating. Someone probably lived there. Maybe it was you, maybe it was a long-distance relative. We're not too sure, but something has happened here. And it's just really unique and interesting that we're seeing this kind of, it's just like, I wouldn't say it's like that movie with Viggo Mortensen in, where like everything is bad and he dies at the end. What was that film called? The one with his son? I can't remember. But it's kind of like that, where there is just no hope. It's literally about surviving as long as possible in any means necessary. So here we go, we're going to try and find a church here. But it's this thing where you also have to fight against the flood too, where even if you try and go for one area, the flood might actually kind of like, or like the rivers kind of like flow might actually like pull you away from it, and you might actually end up losing out on something really amazing and really interesting. There are also really unique characters that you can come across in this too, so it isn't just you by yourself. You may come across a house with an elderly woman in it, or maybe a trader. There's that bush of thorns that I came into contact with and ended up hurting myself. And it was this thing as well where, because you have this little journal booklet thing, you're not having to remember all the crafting things. She kind of like jots them down and makes notes of them, so like she knows some basic form of how to make a bunch of stuff. And so it was this thing where I was going into my inventory, having to see the things that I required, and then having to hunt for them, find them, and then craft them. It wasn't this thing of going, oh, what the fudge do I do? I'm just completely lost. I'm going to pull my hair out, just put a gun in my mouth. I'm just going to hang myself with this piece of string that I've just found. It was actually this thing of, right, I've got my book, I've got my survival guide, I know what to do here, I know what I need to make. It was kind of, it's not hand-holdy, but it's helpful. It's kind of welcoming in that sense. And so I like that, I appreciate that, because it was one of these things where if you're just kind of like having to start this over and over and over again, it could get very repetitive. Because remember, it's not like Don't Starve, where it's randomly generated areas. Well, I guess it kind of is, but you always start at the very same location, then you're going past these very unusual points, which just open areas with, like, say, a bus or a house or something like that. Even wild animals are in this, kind of like wild hogs that I've come across. I'm not too sure if bears are in it, but I'd assume bears are in this. And, again, everything's working against you. Everything is trying to kill you, and it's you trying your best to survive here. And loved it. Loved the gameplay, loved the soundtrack, loved the visuals. And it was this thing here, too, look, so like, rain can go on you and can, like, soak you, and you need to get really good insulated, like, clothing to, like, look after yourself. But there's this thing where the flash of lightning, of thunder, and it's kind of like you end up feeling helpless. You think, oh, there's a church there, I could sleep in there for a moment, but it's going to risk my nutrition, my water requirements, my temperature, and my sleep, so maybe it won't be a good idea. Maybe I should just risk it and get rained on and go on back onto the raft and try and find somewhere else. But then if you don't, then that means you won't get wet, and it means that won't work against you. So there are always things trying to work against you, but you've also got to try and balance them through some form of sacrifice, but then benefit. And I love that. I thought it was really, really cool. Really, really awesome. It's really unusual to like a challenging game. It's really unusual, especially when it's a game where you're meant to lose. Don't you think? So as you can see here, look, it's been like, what, the first 10 minutes, and everything is going wrong against me. My raft is breaking, my character looks like she's bleeding from the eyes, her clothes are soaked, there is a camp here, so we should be able to look after ourselves, but loads of awesome, interesting things, and I'd love to know what you think of this game. I think it's great. So what I'm going to do is, for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to let you enjoy the gameplay, see what you think. Loads of bad things happen. I actually ended up dying after I stopped recording. She literally, like, died. But I would love to know what you think of this game. Comment section below, let me know all of your opinions, and hopefully we will be doing a review. It's been me, Josh, aka Noir Proxy, bringing you some Flame in the Flood on the PC, and I will see you all next time. Ciao for now.
You